Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today for the second video of the day. In case you missed my first one, we talked about, well, the big issue with the big buff to Doom Tower. I'll link that video again in case you missed it in the description below. Today, we're going to talk about all the new champions added to the game. Before we get to that, quick quality of life changes. There's some really sick champions. As we go through this, on top of just speculating on how powerful or crappy these champions will be, I want to kind of interject some of my opinions on all the new champions we've been getting lately. On one hand, it's really cool to get new champions to do guides on, and you know, they're doing a great job with making these champions interesting, unique, bring something new to the table. However, I also find it, I mean, maybe I'm old, maybe it's just, I don't know, you guys tell me if you feel the same way, if you empathize at all, but I find it a little bit overwhelming, man. I mean, we just got a ton new champions. I mean, I think about my free-to-play account, good God, free-to-play players or players who just don't spend a lot, I mean, we're struggling with the champions we have, you know? So even to consider new epic or legendary champions that take 1 billion books, it's kind of daunting, and it's kind of, in a weird way, almost off-putting. With that, it's weird. Like, I live on the fence in life, right? The shades of gray of life, so to speak. But it's cool. These champions all look awesome. Like, even more awesome than the last batch of champions, which were more awesome than the other batch of champions. So in a way, it's so cool, but then I also find it just, I don't know, I kind of would like it if they announced, or if they added just one more champion a week, or maybe a bunch, maybe like each faction every week, even if there's only one or two new champions of each faction, if they just do it that way. Because for me, just to drop for the second time in a month and a half, 20 new OP champions, boom. It's like, okay, who's good, who's not, who do I go for, a 10-time event, everything's so overwhelming to me. Anyway, guys, maybe I'm just in need of some therapy, but you guys can tell me how you feel. Quality of life changes, the one that really stuck out at me, other than more rewards in the bazaar, which is kind of cool. They're going to rework the tiers. Basically, they're going to decrease the amount of arena or gold, excuse me, that we get from the end of the season, and increase how much we get from each individual battle and tag team arena. They're also going to add different rewards for all tiers: bronze, silver, and gold. Charm chests, player avatars, etc. Okay, infuse broad mob, yay. It'd be so freaking cool if they just allowed us to buy fragments from previous champion fragment summon fusions, whatever the hell they're called. You know what I'm saying? Why don't you give us all the previous fragments, even if you charge a lot for them? It's cool, but you know, it's really weird and oddly, I don't know, provoking to have all those shards that, or all those champion fragments rather, that, you know, they're sitting there at 90 out of 100, and it's just like, oh yeah, you'll never get these. So it'd be cool if they added those to the tag team, to the bazaar, right? Anyway, quality of life, basically, if you buy clan boss keys, instead of just being clumped in your inbox, like, who's gonna want 3 clan boss keys in one day? They're gonna come individually. Okay, cool. And Artifact Forge UI changes as well. Who cares? All right, Flare. A dwarf. There are a lot of dwarfs, not a lot of skinwalkers. You know, there's still some factions that they're totally ignoring, but there are some new dwarves. Flailer is a rare. We're going to start with the rares, work our way up towards the legendaries. Attacks one enemy, has a 25% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10% on the A1, whatever. Increased defense on this champion and the ally with lowest HP, and fills this champion's turn meter by 25%. Notably, it's on a 2-turn cooldown when booked, so kind of cool. Attacks one enemy, has a chance of placing a provoke. Not my favorite rare champion they're adding. Not the worst, but certainly not as good as some of these other dudes. Abyssal. This is my favorite non-void rare, I believe. An AoE attack on the A1, and then has a 15, make it 30% chance of placing a block buff debuff for 2 turns on an AoE on an A1. Pretty cool. And then heals all allies by 15% of their max HP on a 3-turn cooldown. Places an increased defense and an increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown of wards of madness. Granted, it's a small version of increased defense and increased attack, but it's really cool to see both of those buffs on the same ability, right? So you get the defense and the attack. I like this champion. It's not like S tier or anything like that, but he's a solid free-to-play option. If I got him on my free-to-play, I would build him. Let's put it that way. Scrapper. Scrapper looks like a scrapper. Some sort of like MMA boxer or something, or fighter, excuse me. So Arena Arts. Attacks one enemy, places a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns, equal to 5% of the champion inflicted on the... Okay, shield. Cool. On the A2, Crowd Pleaser. Attacks one enemy, destroys target's max HP by 30% of the damage dealt. Plays a shield buff on the champion for 2 turns, equal to 30% of the champion's max HP if the attack is critical. His passive is increase the damage inflicted by this champion, equal to the percentage of max HP destroyed on the target. He also has a Doom Tower attack aura. This dude is a response to Scarab King, obviously, with a shield and the decreased enemy max HP. This is on a 2-turn cooldown on his A2. I think that he's a void, by the way, but I think that he is a very cool champion. He doesn't look like a barbarian to me, but we haven't seen his whole body either. Yeah, I think he's pretty cool. For Scarab King. Niche. Boltsmith is a rare force champion. A dwarf, another dwarf here. Attack one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 15% chance. Make it a 25% chance when booked to place in decreased speed for 2 turns. This actually comes in handy in a second, I believe. Increased crit rate and increased crit damage on this champion. Grants an extra turn. I love the granted extra turn abilities. Attack one enemy, will ignore 30% of the target's defense. Alright, so I was wrong about the A1 coming into play later. That's another champion I'm thinking of. But I'm assuming he hits hard on this A3, Piercer Munitions. I don't know. Otherwise, it's not that interesting to me. I like the increased crit rate, increased crit damage, but I don't know, 15% increased crit rate? Meh. Cool that he grants an extra turn, but he better hit hard in that A3, otherwise not worth it to me. Tarshon is an epic. That's all for rares. Kind of sucks, because I don't think any of those are game-changing rares. I want them to add some really new, even if it's just one, like one really compelling rare. My favorite out of those, I guess, you know, the fighter dude for Scarab King, or Abyssal with the AoE on the A1 block buffs for 2 turns. But nothing like crazy, you know, like no frozen, well, I was going to say no frozen Banshees, but I guess you can make the argument that, what is his name again? Pit Fighter, Prize Fighter, Scrapper? What? Oh, that was his, no, what am I, Pit Fighter, what? Anyway, Scrapper. Scrapper's a pretty cool champion, just niche. Anyway, into Tarshon, the Void Champions, excuse me, the Epic Champions. Man, my brain is fried today, like every day. Diabolical Hook has a provoke on the A1. On the A2, an AoE attack with weaken. I'm not going to read every single one of these abilities because we'll be here for 2 hours, plus the legendaries kits are incredibly long. Going to try to cover the, you know, the majority of what they're bringing to the table. On the AoE, this is a defense-based champion, by the way. AoE 3-turn cooldown weaken. Solid. And then increased defense on all allies for 2 turns. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 20%. That's on a 4-turn cooldown. Plays a strengthened buff on this champion for 2 turns whenever their HP drops below 50%. Whenever their nothing drops below 50%. Alright, so to me, looks like a pretty cool champion. I mean, you're getting a 35% chance provoke. You're getting an AoE weaken. You're getting an increased defense. Granted on a 4-turn cooldown, but I think it's a solid champion for sure. This is the next one here, Prundar. Prundar is an epic void defense-based Ogren tribe champion. On the A1, we have a decreased defense, has a stun instead when counterattacking with a skill. Interesting. An AoE attack on the A2 with a provoke, increased defense on himself or herself, I guess, on a 3-turn cooldown. So an AoE provoke on a 3-turn. We have that, it looks like only 75% chance at landing that though. A strengthened and a continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn. And then receives 20% less damage from enemies under provoke debuffs. Has a 25% chance of counterattacking whenever enemy under provoke attacks this champion or an ally. And that can be booked up to 50% chance. So that will be placing a lot of decreased speeds. And this is what I was talking about the A1 earlier. It was this champion I was thinking of. So we think about it, right? He's landing the provokes. They're attacking him. And then when he's attacked, his damage is less. And then he has a 50% chance to a counterattack whenever any provoker attacks anybody, basically, right? That's solid because he's landing the decreased speed or he's landing the stun every time that he counterattacks. A really, really dynamic CC crowd control champion, right? Because he's stunning and he's provoking in counterattack with the strength and continuous heal. I think that Prundar, it's easy to look at this kit and be like, okay, solid, but not like incredible. But I think he might be sneakily one of the best champions added here. You heard it here first. So KLODD, BEASTFEEDER. BEASTFEEDER. New standby hand, stabby hand. New stabby hand? That's the name of the A1? Man, this video is off the tracks, dude. Magic Ogren HP. First is the fat dude, now is BEASTFEEDER. Great pairing with War Mother. They're both Ogren tribe. Get Behind Me is the A2. What the frig? Place a shield buff of these champions for equal to 20% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns on all allies. On a 3-turn cooldown. Decrease crit rate on the A1, whatever. Increase speed and an increased accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. We're seeing several new champions added to the game with an increased accuracy. So Khazard, Depart, you are no longer that special, my friend. There's going to be a few of them. Heals the ally, with the lowest HP by 10% of their max HP at the start of this champion's turn. I think a solid champion overall. Increased speed and accuracy on a 3-turn. Shield, solid, but not, considering we have a lot. Sorry, BEASTFEEDER. We have a lot of. This is my favorite epic add to the game. Godseeker Aniri, a defense void sacred order. Attacks 1 enemy, heals the ally with the lowest HP by 5% of their max HP. Cannot heal this champion. On the A2, Quest for Meaning. Attacks all enemies on a 3-turn cooldown, heals all allies by 15% of their max HP, then decreases the duration of buffs on all enemies by 1 turn, and increases the duration of all buffs on allies by 1 turn on a 3-turn cooldown. That's pretty sick. It's better than Sandlash Survivor's A2 or A3. Rise of Glory on the A3. Revives a dead ally with 50% HP, then fills their turn meter by 50%, then resets the cooldown of all their skills. That's a sick revive on a 4-turn cooldown. And then the passive, Guardian Angel. Passive effect. Increases the amount of healing that all allies receive by 10%. Active effect. If an ally is about to get killed by a fatal hit, preempts that hit and instantly places a revive on death buff on them for 1 turn before the damage is taken. Again, on a 4-turn cooldown on that passive, but sick defense support champion with a great revive, a really effective AoE, and a nice timely heal on the A1. I think an amazing support champion. If there's a 10 times event, I might be tempted to do it for Godseeker Aniri. Fodor or Fobor the Bard. Not a big fan of him. He's a Spirit Affinity, another Dwarf champion, 3-time hit on his A1 with heal reduction. On the A2, a chance of stealing 2 buffs from the target, 100% chance when booked of placing a stun if the target has no active buffs. On the A3, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance, 100 when booked of placing a decreased defense for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown though. Yeah. Not really. I mean, now that they're adding so many champions with decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown, is he adding enough else to the equation to make it worth going, investing in him? For me personally, the answer is no. But, open to your disagreements. LODRIC FALCONHEART. On the A1, decrease attack, solid. And that is a 40, 50, 60% chance, solid. Removes all debuffs from 1 ally, then places an ally protect buff on that ally for 2 turns on the A2 holdout. That's on a 3-turn cooldown, okay. Plays a shield buff on all allies equal to for 2 turns equal to 20% of this champion's max HP on a 2-turn cooldown. So you take away the fact that Falcon's Wings is on a 2-turn cooldown, and it's just like, okay, decent champion, whatever. But a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns equal to 20% of this champion's max HP on a 2-turn cooldown with the ally protect, the remove debuffs from 1 ally, and decrease attack. I actually think that this champion is worth building. It's kind of like Metal Shaper, but a better epic version, right? With the 2-turn shield. Okay. Pestilus. Pestilus is a Knight Revenant champion. On the A1, we have a 2 times at random, has a 30, 40, 50% chance of placing a leech. On Flames Within, the A2 attacks 1 enemy, has a 75% chance of placing an HP burn, debuff for 2 turns, heals all allies by 15% of their max HP if the HP burn debuff is placed, fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% if the debuff is not placed. I don't like abilities like this. Too many qualifiers for me. Just my taste. I like complicated kits, I really do, because to me, I'm a big Magic the Gathering player, at least I was, you know, in the 90s and the early 2000s, and as you saw the progression of Magic the Gathering, as, you know, more expansions kind of were introduced to the game, you saw cards becoming more and more complex, which I think is good strategically for the overall health of the game. However, I just don't personally, I like complicated, I just don't like qualifiers, you know? And this one feels too qualified to me. It's a one enemy attack too. Increased accuracy and increased crit damage on all allies for 2 turns definitely saves this kit, which is underwhelming. The leech actually isn't that bad on the A1. So increased accuracy, increased crit damage. I can see Clan Boss or Doom Tower as accuracy in Doom Tower as well as an aura, excuse me. So increased accuracy, increased crit damage in the accuracy aura makes him not an awful champion, but I wouldn't say like S tier must build. QUARGAN the Crowned, a Spirit Lizard Man support champion, ascended on the A1, attacks 1 enemy, has a 50% chance of increasing the duration of a random buff on a random ally by 1 turn. Better than nothing, I guess. Heals all allies by 15% of their max HP, places a shield buff equal to 15% of their max HP on all allies for 2 turns. On Overgrowth, okay, so it's a heal, it's a shield, and it's on a 3-turn cooldown. On Attunement, the A3 places a perfect Veil buff. This is on a 4-turn cooldown. A perfect Veil buff and a 50% increased attack buff for 2 turns on all allies whose attack is higher than their defense. On all your nukers, your damage dealers, your debuffers. And then places an increased defense and a block debuff buff for 1 turn on all allies whose defense is higher than their attack. So I said I hate qualifiers, but I do like this sort of qualifier because it's giving whoever needs it the most whatever they need the most, right? It's helping your attackers, keeping them protected under perfect veils, increase attack, and you get increased defense and block buffs on all your defensive, you know, base champions. I really, really like that ability. It's a shame it's a 4-turn cooldown, but it's still a great support champion in my opinion. All right, moving right along on Deacon Armstrong. Deacon looks like a beast, if I remember correctly. On the A1, Mace of Contempt. This is a Sacred Order support Spirit Affinity champion, guys. Attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each has a 30% chance of placing a leech debuff. Attacks all enemies. Has a 100% chance when booked. Wait a second here. 80% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. It can be booked up to, oh my, okay, 100%, my bad. All right, so 100% AoE decreased defense, solid. Fills a turn meter of all allies by 15% and decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 15%, then grants an extra turn on a 3-turn cooldown. I gotta say, I remember correctly, I stand by. Deacon Armstrong is pretty badass, you know? He's got the leech on the A1, he has a decrease in AoE decreased defense on the A2 on a 3-turn, and then he has the little mini Lysandra ability here with the turn meter fill and the turn meter depletion, and then the extra turn. Not bad. Not bad at all. I like Deacon Armstrong. All right, next up is Runekeeper Dazdurk. Another dwarf, another void. Attacks 1 enemy, has a leech on the A1. On the A2, an increased attack on all allies for 2 turns and fills the turn meter of all allies by 25% on a 3-turn cooldown. That's a great ability there in Rune of Battle. And it makes me think that he might be a fast champion too, a fast dwarf, I don't know. Ascendant, removes all debuffs from all allies, then heals all allies by 25% of this champion's max HP. Places a continuous heal buff for 2 turns on allies who have debuffs removed. I have to say that Runekeeper Dazdurk, it is great as a 6-turn cooldown, but it's a great ability. I think it's going to be a really solid Faction Wars. You know, Dwarf Faction Crypt is the most difficult in the game, in my opinion. And I think he's going to help out a lot there. You know, might not be the best champion ever, but will be helpful. There's some really insanely good legendaries being added to the game here, guys. Going to try to go through them quickly. SICIA Flametongue. Legendary Force Demon Spawn champion. I can't wait to see what these champions look like. 1 enemy 3 times, each has an HP burn. Attacks all enemies on the A2, has a 100% chance of placing a weakened debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 100% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns if there are at least 2 enemies under HP burn debuffs. Instantly activates any HP burn debuffs on each target and decreases the cooldown of those HP burn debuffs by 1 turn. Pretty cool. Flame Eruption. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. I think that's a sick ability, honestly. An AoE weaken, guaranteed, basically, provided affinity matchup, plus the decreased defense if they have HP burn, plus the instant activation, the trigger of the HP burn, plus decrease the duration of those HP burns. So basically, it triggers them immediately. I think it's a good ability. HP burn debuff on this champion for 3 turns, then attacks all enemies. Has a 100% chance when booked, placing an HP burn debuff on all enemies for 3 turns. Grants an extra turn if an HP burn debuff is placed on all enemies. Dude, imagine opening up, heck, even an arena battle with an AoE attack on the A3, high accuracy, right? Especially going against Magic Affinity in the arena. And forget, I mean, dungeons too, and everywhere, really. But imagine opening up with this Firestorm right, and then granting an extra turn because you landed all of those HP burns. It's doing damage too. I don't know what the multipliers are, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown. And then going right into another weaken, decreased defense, and HP burn tick immediately before the enemy even goes. I think it's going to be a pretty sick champion here. And then the passive here, Metaphysics, increases this champion's speed by 3 and damage inflicted by 3 for each ally and enemy under an HP burn debuff. If Cardial is on the same team, all allies will then be healed by 3% of their max HP from HP burn debuffs instead of receiving damage and losing HP. Wow. Okay, there we go. That's a lot, but there's a lot more to come. All right, this is one of these another companion champion being added to the game. A Magic Affinity Demon Spawn. They love Demon Spawn. They can't get enough of Undead Horde and Demon Spawn. Attacks 1 enemy 2 turns, has a weaken on the A1. Attacks all enemies 3 times on the A2 in Mire of Misery. Each hit has a 100% chance when booked of placing a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Also has a 100% chance when booked of decreasing the enemy's turn meter by 10%. So decreased speed, 10% turn meter reduction, pretty good ability on a 4-turn cooldown. Time Dilation on the A3 attacks all enemies, has a 100% chance of placing a block cooldown skills debuff for 2 turns, also decreases the cooldown of all ally skills except this champion by 1 turn. Time Dilation, what a sick ability. It's on a 5-turn cooldown, but that's a great ability. I love it. Block cooldown skills, another kind of arena type champion potentially, right? Block cooldown skills for 2 turns, like a Hegemon, but it has a 100% chance of landing too, you know? Granted, it doesn't always go first, which makes Hegemon so special, but still. And also decreases the cooldown of all ally skills. So it's kind of like, I like it. Removes 1 random debuff from Astralon, that's another companion champion, who's also the fusion champion. In this champion at the start of each turn, only available if you're on the same team as Astralon. And then fills the champion's turn meter by 5% each time an ally receives a debuff. Pretty cool passive. Pretty cool champion. Countess Licks. Did I say countless? Countess Licks. All right, so there's the companion champion. Cardial. Oh my god, Cardial's kit is long and good. Attacks 1 enemy. Heals all... This is like Sky Touch Shaman on steroids. Granted, it's also a Void Legendary from the Sacred Order. Attacks 1 enemy, heals all allies by 7.5% of their max HP. Also places a True Fear debuff for 1 turn if the target is a champion from Demon Spawn, Undead Horde, or Knight Revenant factions. Again, we're getting to that Magic the Gathering comparison here, where these abilities are more complex, but really cool still. Like, you take away all these kind of weird things about certain factions, and the champion's still really good. And to me, that's really the litmus test here, right? Is, are they really good when you take away all these qualifiers? If the answer is yes, then it's just a bonus. Removes all debuffs from all allies on a 3-turn cooldown, so a 3-turn cleanse with the block debuffs, with the Revive on Death for 2 turns, and the Revive on Death buffs cannot be removed. Sky Touch has these abilities on a 4-turn cooldown. This is a 3-turn cooldown, and the Revive on Death obviously can be removed. Heavenly Host, granted Sky Touch does have an AoE on the A1 as well. Heavenly Host, increased crit rate and increased crit damage buff on all allies for 2 turns. Then teams up with all allies to attack a target enemy. Decrease the cooldown of this skill by 1 if the enemy is killed. Dude, Heavenly Host, what a sick ability. This is going to be an S tier arena champion, platinum tier arena. Mark my words right now. There's really no doubt about it. Everybody who's using the Sky Touch will just replace her with him if they're ever lucky enough to get a Void Legendary champion, right? Allies receive 20% less damage from champions from Undead Horde, Demon Spawn, Night Revenant. Whenever an ally attacks, has a 15% chance, make it a 30% chance to team up with them and join their attack. Whenever an ally attacks, has a 30% chance to join them and team up with their attack. This champion will then attack with their default skill. Always join SICIA Flametongue's attacks if they are on the same team. Can only join ally attacks once per turn. Cardio will not team up on ally attacks when they counterattack or when they attack another champion. Or when they team to attack another champion. Woo! Speed in all battles in the Aura 2. Dude, really cool champion. Because he's landing those true fears when he's ally attacking every single time. He has a 30% chance of doing so. Dude, he's a cool champion. Add him to the top of the wish list for yours truly, at least. What do you guys think? So Samar Gem Cursed. Spirit Affinity Dwarf. Dude, what's up with them saying that the Dwarf Fragment Summon's coming this month? I'm assuming it still is. Just not right now. And I'm assuming it's not one of these champions. Anyway, Legendary Dwarf, HP based champion. Attacks one enemy, heals by 15% of the damage inflicted if his champion has 50% HP or less. Fills his champion's turn meter by 15% if he has more than 50% HP. Okay. Attacks one enemy, inflicts bonus damage equal to the difference in HP levels between this champion and the target, plus 1% for every 1% difference. Inflicts bonus damage equal to the equal to the difference in number of buffs this champion has and the target, 10% per buff on a 3-turn cooldown. This is an ability that we're going to see the multipliers on. There's really not much else to say, right? Attacks all enemies on the A3, has a 100% chance of stealing 2 random buffs before attacking, places an extra hit on enemies that have any buffs left. And then Diamond Skin, Diamond Hands more like it. Place a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn at the start of each round. Block damage for 1 turn at the start of each round. This is on a 4-turn cooldown, can't be booked. Block incoming damage and places a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn when they receive a hit that would drop their HP below 30%. Great champion, what can I say, right? I mean, I'm not as high on him as I am the other ones that the other 3 that we discussed so far, but a lot of this, I mean, look at all the books though. Ooh. Does that hurt you guys as much as it hurts me? Yikes. That's a lot of books, man. Yikes. All right. Getting to the finale here, guys. Nogdar the Headhunter. Good old Noggy. Attacks one enemy, heals his champion by 10% of their max HP, grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy on the A1. Okay. I'm assuming big multipliers here. You know, this is actually... Back in the day, this might seem like a lot of books, but nowadays, you know, oh, wait, this isn't that many, this isn't that bad, you know? Attacks all enemies after attacking this champion, sacrifices HP equal to 50% of their max HP, then places 2 continuous heal buffs on this champion for 2 turns. The HP sacrifice will happen even if it kills the champion. This is a really cool, like, champion. I don't know how good he's going to be, but he's like a Hackhorn Smash Lord times 1,000,000 in terms of, well, he's not really. He just sacrifices it at max HP. Anyway, check it out, though. Last rites. Sacrifices HP equal to 50% of this target's max HP, then equalizes HP levels with the target enemy. The HP levels of both this champion and the target enemy will be brought down to the level of the one with the lowest HP. He's like, it's an interesting ability, interesting champion, right? Revives this, but this is the key here, right? The passive. Revives this champion with 50% HP and 50% turn meter when killed if all other allies are alive. I think that's a that completes this kit in a way that I would be pretty underwhelmed if he didn't have it, right? So we have the extra turn on the A1, we have the AoE with the continuous heals, HP sacrifice on the A2. We have the exchange HP levels on the A3. And then, you know, as long as it's only him dying, maybe he's putting out a ton of damage, right? And then he'll just revive himself. He just keeps dying, he just keeps reviving himself, you know? I don't know. All right, Astralon is the new fusion champion. Man, I really wish it was a fragment summon. Astralin, a legendary Magic Affinity Sacred Order champion, an attack-based champion. On the A1, attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 30% chance, making a 50% chance of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Countess licks. Countless? It's the L from the licks jumps in the Countess because I'm a dummy. Countess licks will team up and join the attack if they are on the same team. They'll use their default skill. Will not team up if this champion's already joining another, ally attack or counterattacking. On the A2, attacks one enemy, will ignore increased defense, strengthen, and ally protect buffs. Revives a random ally with 40% HP, then places a shield buff on them, 20% of their max HP, if the attack kills an enemy. Also places a shield buff on this champion if the attack kills an enemy. Alright. On the A3, I'm assuming it's really hard hitting, right? On the A3, but do we need another hard hitting ability, right? We already have Errol, Anyway, granted, the revive on kill is pretty cool too, especially if it hits super hard, but still, I don't know. Anyway, removes all buffs from the target under Veil or Perfect Veil buffs, and then places a 25% weaken debuff on enemies who have Veil or Perfect Veil buffs removed. Then attacks all enemies. Also has a 100% chance when booked of placing a stun debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Now this is a cool ability on a 4-turn cooldown. Removing Veil and Perfect Veils for PvP is pretty solid. Has a weaken on those enemies and then has a stun. Cool. On Emissary, the passive fills this champion's turn meter by 3%. Each time an ally is hit, decreases incoming damage by 25% if the attacker is lower than this champion's. I think overall, it seems like maybe again, we don't know the multiplier, so it's hard to speculate, but I think this champion's probably going to be worth using for, for people. But that being said, definitely not my favorite of all the legendaries. What about you guys? Who's your favorite in each category? That's the question I'll throw you to end today's video. By the way, Fitting Room seems to be pretty cool, right? To me. I see some people in the comments kind of hating on it, but for me, it's cool. Essentially, what you can do is drag all the artifacts that you want over a champion, and you can see what their stats will be, and then you can lock them in. That way, we've all been there, right? Where we mistakenly equip something on the champion, we go, oh, no, I'd rather have that, So I like the Fitting Room. That's essentially what it is, right? You get to see the stats, swap out in and out artifacts to your choosing, and then you press lock, boom, and it goes from, not on them, but you can see the stats as if they were on them, to on them. I like it. Is it a game changer? No. But is it a nice little quality of life update? I think personally it is. Guys, let me know. I threw a lot at you in today's video. Let me know what you think of these champions. Let me know what you think of my ideas regarding adding new champions to the game. Do you find it overwhelming as well? And what do you think of the Fitting Room, guys? Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys. And as always, take care, guys.